In today's video, we're going to talk about Alice in Wonderland programming. I've been asked to do this as a special request, so we will dive into that in a minute. For those of you that are new here, my name is Celine. I'm a mental health therapist and an intuitive energy healer and a spiritual guide. And I specialise in SRA and mind control recovery. So in today's video, as I say, this is going to be about Alice in Wonderland. I did want to do it as a presentation, really, because every time I go down this rabbit hole, I just learn more every time. And the more I remember as well, I can kind of relate to myself. So it's a big one. My laptop isn't working very well at the minute, so I can't do that presentation right now, but as soon as I can get a new laptop, I will be doing that, and we'll go really deep on it, because there's just so much to this Lewis Carroll, the programming itself, how it all works, it's a lot. So for today, I got a few things down. I want to go into Lewis Carroll a bit first. The story itself, Alice in Wonderland, was actually based on a little girl called Alice Liddell. It was someone that Carroll met when she was only 4 years old, and he kind of grew this obsession with her. There were lots of symbolism within this, which is what I want to hit on in the presentation. Bit too much here really for today for this video, but a lot of how we met, how we read the story to her, there's a lot of symbolism in there as to who Carroll was, really. So as I say, he got an obsession with this girl, Alice, when she was only 4 years old. He took he had a big interest in children and took lots of naked pictures of them. And he also stated that upon his death, those pictures would be burnt, which I believe they were, as there's not much evidence out there, I don't think. So he was into the esoteric. He was in the Victorian era when this was quite prevalent. He also lost my notes now. He explored both the natural world and spirituality. He was a member of the Society for Physical Research, and he further explored thought transference and mind reading while he was part of this society. There were also other members a part of this. Freud was one of them, and Carl Jung. You might be aware of some of his work that a lot of people are pushing. Yes, Carl Jung was a Freemason, just like Freud, just like Lewis Carroll, all with the same agenda and all the same warped minds. So, be careful what you're kind of digesting. So the caterpillar, when he answers Alice about the mushroom, that's in reference to this transferring and mind reading. It's seen in that part of the movie, we'll say. So the programming's laid out like a chessboard to assist in the mapping of the system. So the thing with mind control is it is a lot like, all our minds are like a computer program. From 0 to 7, they're easily programmable. And this is when we put in what's known as the basic programs. So in like normal everyday life, your children are going to learn to walk, read, grow relationships with people and interactions, who they kind of are around more. They'll kind of develop a character and a personality around those people, maybe with different attributes. But with mind control, because of the system being created and the alters that are created with it, it fractures the mind. So then these different alters can then be programmed individually to do whatever the handler or the programmer wants you to do, whether that's being an assassin, a sex kitten, a drugs mule, whatever they have in store for you is what you'll be programmed with. So kind of went off on a tangent a bit there. So yeah, it's the mind is moldable from 0 to 7, which is why they generally focus on this age group. So that's when a lot of the programming will take place within MK Ultra, and certainly from 3 years onwards. The first 3 years are more about creating the alters, and then from 3 to 7, they can start creating that system and building this structure within the mind, which is what we refer to here with the mapping of the system. I also find it quite interesting how coding, normal program coding with computers, is being pushed on young children, free classes. Don't know if anyone's seen that from like the age of, I think it's from 7. I do wonder about what's behind that really, why they're kind of pushing this. There is also the AI thing as well, with that coming more and more into play as we move forward. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see where that goes. So yeah, Alice needs to win on this chessboard in 11 moves. That's the whole point in the process for them. It's also used in duality programming and mirror programming. So Absalom, you might know the caterpillar. He is a Wonderland. Sorry, bear with me a minute. So Wonderland represents a place of chaos, and it makes you lose a sense of self. So that's what this caterpillar would represent within this. When asked, who are you? When he asks her, who are you? She says she doesn't know. In the program, it can have a number of different roles within the system, assisting with alters and maintaining of their identity. So with me, with this one, losing a sense of self, as you might find if you research, or you might have already come across, a lot of children grow up within one family for the first 5 years, and then they're moved into another family, and then they grow up with them. It's some kind of satanic thing. I don't know exactly why they do it, but it is well known, and it's certainly what happened to me. I had my whole identity changed. I had a whole new birth certificate. They even changed my date of birth, had me thinking I was younger by about 2 or 3 years than I actually am. And I have a whole completely different name. But because they also use this programming to create the names of the alters, and you've also got an Alice alter in there as well, as I will go into a bit further on, that's where the confusion comes in. So then you don't know, if this has happened to you, you don't know which one of those names are actually yours until you can start integrating those alters and getting back down to your core self. You're not going to know if you've gone through that kind of programming. So I can see where that played a part for me with the Alice in Wonderland. So the caterpillar also ensures that the scripts remain in place within the system, within the alters. They assist with navigating the program, as well as knowing some of the codes. So you can use that, then the handler can, to gain access into the various alters. It's also sexual in nature, and so it can be linked to the sex kitten programming, which is also related to Alice in Wonderland programming. He knows the program's history, or the programming history. He can control the memory program, so the remember to forget program. I don't know if any of you have realised about that, or maybe you have, but you weren't sure what it was. You might have realised that over the years things have happened. When we wake up in the morning, we don't remember, because we're programmed that when we go to sleep in the morning, we'll remember to forget. So that can happen a lot. I know that's happened to me multiple times throughout my life. I had no idea why it was happening. even when I've realized now that I remember, like, my whole entire life up until when I remembered in 2019, I know now that at certain times within my 20s and even my 30s, I would be taken out to these things, events, whatever they wanted me to go to, and I'd have no recollection of it the following day. No idea I'd been. I've even gone to, like, I used to live on an island called the Isle of Man. You have to get like a 2.5 hour ferry or something to get onto the mainland of England. Well, that's not going to take me one night. So I've obviously had entire weekends even missing. And a lot of that will be down to this remember to forget programming. So that's where that comes from. He's also comes as blue or green, which is another important colour representation there. So then we have the white rabbit. The white rabbit is known as our handler. He is our main handler. It also has access to the deeper altars within the system. And the white rabbit is heavily associated with time. So a lot of the programming, they'll have clocks kind of layered on top of each other within the system when they're putting this program in. My handler, my main handler, the white rabbit, was always late as a reference to time, and everyone would say that. He'd be known as that. Oh, that's your dad, he's always late. So I found that quite interesting. That's because he was the white rabbit, and there was the association with time. It's also associated with Easter, which is it is celebrated by pagans and things, but also on the satanic side, of course, we have the rituals and sacrifices that take place around then. So that is also symbolic of that. Alice herself plays another important role in this. She is found deep within the system and holds some of the most trauma. If there's one on every level or more of one Alice, they are often what is known as the sleeping Alice, and they are used to transport the body without the host or the other parts remembering. So that there's another one of why this remember to forget, and why you're also forgetting that you haven't gone to these places, because it's actually a sleeping Alice that's taken over the system. So our fronts aren't aware of what is taking place. So when we come back into our front again, we have no idea. So another programming one is Tweedledee and Tweedledum. This is for the twin programming. They do this primarily internally to create two twins. I'll just run through this process first, and then I'll add my bit. So it's used for the internal twin programming, as I say. There are two alters that are programmed alike, and they respond to the same triggers and mostly the same codes. Some are different, though, to allow the programmer to access each alter separately or individual tasks or programming they need to do, because these alters are in there to create conflict and chaos within, and contradictory statements. You might find yourself making contradictory statement. You know you've just done it, but you're like, why have I just said that? I know that's not even, like, you think you have a blonde moment or something. That's what I used to call them. So they're installed using torture, drugs, and scripts, along with the child's imagination. So a lot of programming, the reason why they use LSD and things is because actually it's meditation. It's putting you into a trance, a meditative state, also using hypnosis, which is another way this comes into it. And that's how they program the mind, through our imagination, through the meditation process. So you might find that it's hard to meditate as a MK Ultra survivor. You might have tried. You might only see black when you close your eyes. You find it hard to visualize and things. This is why. It's because of the program that we went through as children. a lot of the time it's shut down because a lot of what they make us see is so terrifying. We literally do not want to go in. And because of the chaos of the programs as well, it's another reason you don't want to go in. And then, of course, there's the trauma, because although a lot of the altars hold those traumas, we still have our own trauma of things that we do actually remember. And like, I knew my childhood wasn't great. I just hadn't remembered about MK Ultra and trafficking and SRA and things like that, and who these people around me actually are and who they're involved with. So yeah, it's crazy. So let me get back. So Tweedledee and Tweedledum follow a script. The program to have qualities of the characters, which include mirror images, which is used for twin programming. You might have noticed that as well if you've got further along in your journey. A lot of mirrors coming up, and you can see yourself in the mirror, and you know maybe it's something you need to break, but you know, you're not sure how to go about that. Just be really careful, because if there's still booby traps and things active within the system, breaking the mirrors, yeah, cannot end well sometimes. Always work with someone that knows what they're doing, or make sure you just read up as much as you can about the process and understand it. As long as you can understand something at a conscious level, you can then work with the subconscious to deprogram, basically. So often it will contradict one another, as I said before, and cause confusion by making opposite statements. It may exhibit stalling or distracting behaviours when others are trying to seek info from you. Twins carry out a role of keeping the person from recognising they are a real person with real feelings, or from experiencing reality. They don't think they're real and exist in someone else's dream. I know I've definitely felt that before. And it's usually it is programmed in a loop. So the purpose is to create alters who perpetuate the denial of reality, to reinforce association of memories, feelings, etc., so others can continue to enslave them. So what I was going to add in with the Tweedledee and Tweedledum programming, everything I see is all about the internal, but I also know that in my case, I was being programmed with my husband. So if you know my story, I grew up and I was trafficked with my second husband, who I'm with now. Well, we're separated, but he was programmed with me. He was always with me. If it was in the facilities itself, he'd be next to me. If it was in one of our houses, he'd always be next to me. The same movie, Alice in Wonderland, or whatever it would be at the time, would be running, and we'd both be programmed together. And we actually grew up with that kind of feeling like we were twins. And we've often thought sometimes, is it biological because of this being in our heads? We also, even though we did separate and I married my previous husband, who was a handler, there was always that connection there, that kind of longing for each other. We hadn't remembered our childhoods. So we didn't really understand where that came from. But because we'd met in 95 and we'd been allowed to kind of remember that and just thought we'd gone our separate ways after a summer romance, it was kind of always there from that point. So we ended up getting back together in 2013, and that's how it kind of barreled in really to us both then remembering what went on. Well, I also remember we were both called Tweedledee and Tweedledum. So actually this twin programming was run on us externally as well as internally. So it's quite mental what they do, really. Nazis, it started well before World War II, but with the Nazis and World War II and concentration camps and things, they were really able to implement this stuff and make it a lot more mainstream, which is why we've got normal people within society being able to do this programming, and are also involved at higher levels as well, with the trafficking process. And, it's just become more mainstream. And people don't realize that. They think it's all the elite. The elite are the customers. It's actually people at our sort of level, in what we'd call the matrix, I guess, because they don't exist in what we see. They're like another, yeah, but anyway, that's a different story. So it goes all the way down. It is a hierarchy from top to bottom, and it's spread like a cobweb around the entire world. You can even look up Wonderland. There's a Wonderland sex ring. It was, a lot of members were arrested in the 90s worldwide, UK, Asia, America, Australia, I believe. But it still goes on today. And I also think that was the network that I was involved in during the 80s and the 90s as well. And I would assume that a lot of you were as well. I'd say this Wonderland ring is based on the Alice in Wonderland and is part of the Illuminati undercover, underground trafficking and porn distribution. So you can have a look up at that if you want to. So the Mad Hatter is often a balance alter within the system, meaning if it's left alone, it can add the balance of kindness and whimsical humour. If this alter's programmed, it can have serious depressive episodes. They know the layout of the layers of the levels, and they can be helpful in navigating internally if trust can be gained. So again, again, it depends on the therapist and also how you work with yourself. I would suggest, if you're starting out on this journey, the first thing you need to do is start being your own best friend. Get rid of all the blame, shame and guilt for everything that's gone on. Don't lose the feeling of dirtiness, things like that. These aren't for you to carry, they're for the abuser to carry. We need to let that go, give that back to them, and you heal on being your own best friend or the parent you never had, and really, really love on yourself. Start with plenty of self-care, telling yourself kind, thoughtful things, reminding yourself how strong you are to have gone through all this and be where you are now in life. Even if you're feeling depressed and you can't get up in the morning, start turning that thinking round, and you're going to start taking more control over your system the more it breaks. So obviously you do need to be away from handlers as well and make sure it's not getting tweaked. They like to bring you in about every 2 to 4 years and tweak the system. So, if you know you're away and that's not happening, your programming is starting to break down, you can then start integrating those alters. But you gain the trust by either becoming your parent or your best friend or whatever resonates with you. You can even call yourself a nurse, whatever. You start getting those trusts of those alters, and then you start working through that way. But you really, really need to start loving yourself. I can't stress that anymore. Not in a narcissistic way, obviously. Just being really kind, giving yourself whatever you need. If you need to rest if you can. Go for walks in nature. That really helps kind of clear the energies and things, because this does all affect our energy as well. Trauma is stored energetically within the body, which is what causes things like fibromyalgia and stuff. And all those aches and pains. So it's really important to kind of focus on that first, and then you can start getting a hold on the system. So obviously, if you want to learn more about that, you can contact me. I'll be happy to go through that. So the Queen of Hearts then finally, she usually rules over levels within the system. She often oversees internal programming in order to keep the defences in the system in check. So that is what I have for this video. As I say, as soon as I get the laptop sorted out, hopefully it won't be too long, I will do a presentation and we can go a bit more in depth. I've got no use of the keyboard. This will go up nameless, this video, and I'll have to kind of alter it on my phone. It's kind of just making things work, really. So I will leave it there for that video. I hope it helped. If you do have any questions, you can get in touch with me either on Facebook message or YouTube. Check out the description below. Please use the stronger, wiser, better email right now. I am having trouble with the other email address. I'm in the process of changing over a whole new website. I don't even think you can access the website right now. I need to double check that. It's oldsoulawakenings.com now. If you can obviously find out more about more about me there, and how you can also work with me. And yeah, I will leave it there for this video. And I will see you all soon. Enjoy your day.